Hey guys, it's Megan. So I know it's been a minute. Where have I even been? I mean, I didn't totally disappear. I have been doing pretty well on TikTok, actually. I know not everyone likes TikTok, so if you want to see everything in order from start to finish, I posted a compilation video that'll be linked in the description. TikTok is wild, man. Okay, so as some of you know, I kind of messed up my hand earlier this year. Well, actually not just my hand, but that's a whole story for another day. But I started physical therapy, it's coming back, and you know what else came back around that time? Altoids Wallets. This was one of the first crafts that I ever made on YouTube, literally in 2012. Yes, I'm that old, except personally, I think Altoids are gross, I'm sorry. And back in 2012, I made my Altoids wallet using a Sucrets tin. This time I bought some blank tins because I didn't have any tins and I wanted to be able to decorate the outside as well. No shade, but unlike some of these TikTok craft girlies, I make these videos because I want people to be inspired by them. Like, if you want to copy this, go right ahead. That's what these videos are for. So my thinking was I can buy some blank tins and show people the ideas. If you have a tin lying around that you can upcycle, cool. If not, this is also an option. Like, it really was not that deep. But of course, it's the internet and people always try to make something out of nothing. And people were apparently very upset that I decided to buy tins from Amazon. And listen, I get it, but also, I'm not busting out the ukulele over this one. It's actually kind of funny because almost everything that I used for these I already had except for the actual tins, so I don't know, people can stay mad. Seriously, I'll tell anyone who will listen, I think that TikTok has been terrible for society overall, but I finally gave in and actually started posting there, so maybe I am the problem. Who knows? Despite that, I want to thank the people that left like super nice comments. I swear I got hundreds of comments saying that people used to watch my YouTube channel and they remember me from YouTube, and like I love that people actually made these too and tagged me. Like, it sounds dumb, but that gave me a reason to keep going. Like, that is why I do this. Anyways, without further ado, here is the ultimate guide to making Altoids wallets. I noticed that some people kind of have trouble cutting the paper or whatever they're trying to put inside the tin, which honestly same. So what you can do is just trace the top and the bottom of your tin onto a piece of paper. Make sure you label them so that you know which is which, and cut them out. When you put this in the tin, it's probably going to be a little bit bigger than what you actually want. So you're just going to go ahead and press the paper up to the edges and use your pencil to mark them. Then you can just cut off that little extra bit where you drew the line, and now you'll have a nice little template that'll make it so much easier to decorate the inside. You can make a template for the edges too. I wouldn't do one for the top edge because it can make it harder to close. But for the bottom edge, I just stuck the long side of my paper in, marked it, then did the same thing on the other end of the paper. I connected the marks that I made with a ruler, cut along the line, and it fit perfectly inside of my tin. I decorated the inside of my tins in a couple different ways. The first technique used paper. I used scrapbook paper, magazine clippings, book pages, upcycled packaging, basically anything you have lying around. I used double-sided tape to stick down the paper in the first wallet that I made, and that ended up being a good choice. I tried using Mod Podge to stick down magazine clippings in this wallet, but besties, this did not go well. I sort of ripped the top piece because I had to reposition it, and then the bottom piece was a little bit off center, so I kind of had to fix that by cutting another sky piece. Like, it was a hot mess. But at this point, I was in too deep. So if you're using any type of paper, double-sided tape is definitely the way to go. I like adding these little mirrors to my wallets. One of my favorite techniques is to use UV resin to stick some mini magnets to the back of a mirror. You could just glue the mirrors in, but this way you can move the mirror around however you want. You could even stick it to the outside of the tin. Just make sure that you get the right size mirrors. These tins honestly aren't that big, and you need to make sure that you can still close it. I think the mirrors with frames around them are really cute. I got this circle one from Michael's and some rectangular ones from Amazon. But you can also get mirrors that come without frames and decorate them yourself. I like using these 2x2 inch mirrors. I also got some 1x1 inch mirrors, but they're like a quarter of the size. I think these would work if you kind of glue them in a line like this. I used polymer clay to make this mirror look sort of like a Polaroid. I traced the mirror onto a piece of paper to create a template. I just cut that out. Then I tested out this clay roller that I got to flatten out some white polymer clay. Using the template we made as a guide, I cut out a square, then lightly scored the lines in the middle before cutting out that section of the clay. I was so mad I accidentally broke it, but it's all good. I just used some liquid Sculpey to stick the clay back together, then baked it at 275 for 15 minutes. And once it cooled, I used sandpaper to smooth everything out. Then used some epoxy to stick the clay piece to my mirror. I used the leftover glue to stick the magnets on the back. This technique was perfect for this Taylor Swift inspired wallet. Or you could use some flat back embellishments like these pearls to create a frame. I like using UV resin for things like this because it's a little more secure and it dries faster than most glues. Once the frame was done, I used more resin to stick mini magnets to the back of my mirror. I don't like to add too many decorations to the inside because, I still want it to be useful. But I think it's fun to add some little extra things inside the lid. In my Olivia Rodrigo inspired wallet, I added letter beads to safety pins to spell out lyrics from one of her songs. Stuff like beads, charms, rhinestones, stickers, magazine cutouts all work really well for this. You could also use thin ribbon or yarn to add bows. I love that bows are back. I really want to make a whole just ribbon/bow craft video, so comment down below if you would watch that. Just make sure that you use a strong glue. I used either E6000 glue or epoxy for most of these. I think the epoxy worked a little better. You could definitely use hot glue, but I wanted something that I could move around if I needed to without ripping the paper underneath. Another option that I really like using for the inside is fabric or felt. The fun thing about felt is that you can sew on embellishments before you glue it in. I sewed some of that lace from the first tin to the top piece of felt to make this little earring holder. I just folded the edges of the lace and sewed it on. And once all my felt pieces were ready, I just used some E6000 glue to glue everything in place. Just be careful not to get any glue on the top edge because you don't want to have any issues closing it. If you do, you can just wipe it off with a wet paper towel. Just press everything in there and once it's dry, you're good to go. You could roll up some felt to do one of those ring holder type deals in the bottom, but I already have a couple of those. I wasn't really feeling it, so I just left the bottom open. I especially like the felt option because it's a little less noisy. One of my favorite techniques for these is to sew some elastic to a piece of felt for the inside of the lid. Again, this is one of those things where you might want to cut your elastic a little bit shorter than your felt to make sure that the lid can still close properly. I thought the elastic looked a little too plain, so I ended up sewing a charm to the middle on these. You can also just use plain fabric on the inside. I used some E6000 glue to stick the fabric to the tin, and it worked great for both types of fabric. You could put money in there, gum, pimple patches, blotting sheets. If you were going to do a first aid kit, you could put band-aids or something. It can hold thicker stuff like chapstick, but if you do that, the only problem is you can't put too much in the bottom because then it won't close. But I love this. I think she's so cute, and I definitely recommend this technique. You can also layer different fabrics like I did with this Hello Kitty tool. Since the fabric was sheer, I traced the template that I made onto some felt first. I cut that out, then placed it underneath the Hello Kitty fabric, traced it, and cut that out as well. I used some fabric glue to attach both pieces together. I also like to spice up plain fabric by layering it with lace. I just hand sewed mine on the ends, but since I hand sewed it, I didn't worry about the longer edge. I used this technique for the bottom of the Olivia Rodrigo and the Lana Del Rey Altoids tin. I think that pretty much covers the inside. If you aren't in love with the outside of the mint tin, or if you decide to buy blank ones like I did, here are a few ways that you can decorate the outside. The first, and honestly the most basic technique that I used for the outside was using scrapbook paper. You just trace the top of your tin, cut it out, and I like to use matte Mod Podge for this, especially if you want to seal it on top with more Mod Podge. The matte one will make sure that the wallet doesn't randomly get stuck to things if it gets hot or something. I have made so many things with Mod Podge over the years, especially if you're using paper, just trust me, I know. But my favorite technique, especially for these blank tins, is to actually use tissue paper. I found this out sort of by accident. Everyone kept commenting that these reminded them of 2014 DIYs, which yes, we love, this is my time to shine, but it reminded me of this tissue paper that I saved from Graveyard Girl's BeautyCon box. I knew I saved this for a reason. Again, highly recommend matte Mod Podge for this. The tissue paper is a bit see-through, but it molds to the tin a lot better than the scrapbook paper. It works especially well under larger decorations. I used epoxy to glue on a butterfly patch for the Olivia Rodrigo wallet, or for the Hello Kitty wallet. My mom got me this set of Hello Kitty Pyrex bowls last Christmas, and I thought that this box that they came in was kind of cute, so I cut out a bunch of the images and I sort of peeled the cardboard off the back. I figured that I could use them in some sort of project, and it's been a year, but hey, I knew I'd find a way to use these eventually. I generally like to add something other than just the paper. I really like using lace. Again, that just gets stuck on and sealed with matte Mod Podge. I've also used stickers, old costume jewelry, ribbon. For this wallet, I cut a piece to fit across the top and tied some more ribbon into a bow. I sealed the ends with a lighter, folded my main piece of ribbon in half, and found some matching thread to sew on the bow. Her shirt technically has seagulls on it, but I figured that this bird charm was close enough. I sewed that on right underneath my bow, and I thought since the charm might make it heavier, that it might be better to use epoxy instead of Mod Podge, but the problem was that it kind of leaked through and sort of discolored the ribbon a little bit, so I tried to use a couple flat back pearls to disguise it. I also really like using flat back pearls and gems. I don't really trust the sticky stuff that comes on the back of them. I actually like to peel that off and use epoxy to stick them down instead. One of the advantages to using these flat tins is that they're the perfect base for 3D elements. I made a couple Deco Den style wallets using some DAP Quick Seal silicone caulk. After I made the first one, a bunch of people recommended that I sanded the top of the tin before adding the caulk, so definitely do that. I wiped off the dust with some rubbing alcohol. The main things that I used for this is some adhesive caulk and any sort of embellishments that you want. I ended up using one of my grandma's old clip-on earrings, some buttons, the big key was from some kind of project that I made in like middle school, the little frame was from Hobby Lobby, and the rest was from Amazon. Everything will be linked. I tried to make the decorations as flat as possible, so I broke off the back of the earrings with my pliers and used wire cutters to snip off the backs of my plastic buttons. It definitely helps to lay everything out beforehand and take a picture before you add the caulk. This DAP Quick Seal was super easy to work with. You don't need a caulking gun or anything, it's basically like frosting. I used a popsicle stick to spread out the caulk as smoothly as possible, then stuck in my decorations. I was super inspired by the memoir phone case trend that was popular a few months ago, but I had one of those deco den cases at one point, and bumpy phone cases like that, I mean they're cute, but they're kind of annoying, so I skipped that one. But this technique is perfect for a little jewelry box like this. I still thought something was missing, so I found a few beads and some mini seashells that I had left over from other projects, and I stuck those in as well. If you use this DAP Quick Seal, the top layer, it'll start to set after about 30 minutes, but the back says that it takes about 24 hours to fully dry. Some of the vintage buttons that I used, they must have had copper in them, and apparently copper makes silicone caulk turn blue. You learn something new every day, but it's all good. I just found a small paintbrush and went over any blue spots with some white acrylic paint. I also used caulk on the outside of my brat's Altoids Wallets. Since she wasn't going to be standing up, I cut off the little purple base with an X-Acto knife. I thought it would be cute if I made it look like the brat's doll was making a little snow angel, so I traced my tin onto some scrap paper, put the doll on top, then sketched out a snow angel shape. I cut that out, then added the caulk to my tin. I used a popsicle stick to spread everything out, then stuck down the paper snow angel cutout. I traced around that with a toothpick, then carefully lifted the paper back up. I used the toothpick to sort of carve out the snow angel shape a little bit more. I kept the caulk a little bit thicker in the middle so I could stick on the brat's doll. If you look at a real snow angel, the snow is kind of thicker around the edges. So I used a toothpick and a little more caulk to try to build those up a bit more. I thought it still looked kind of plain, so I added a few pearl beads to the top to look like snowballs. I didn't think the snow angel stood out enough, so after the caulk dried, I went around the edges with some gloss Mod Podge, then added some white glitter on top. Then did a second coat of Mod Podge over the glitter so it wouldn't fall off. I know I said not to use gloss Mod Podge earlier in the video, but if you use glitter, you kinda have to use the gloss one, because if you use the matte one, it just won't look right. Okay, who else remembers the DIY squishy era? I seriously have so much puffy paint left, and it worked perfectly for this Rory Gilmore sweater inspired tin. I traced the lid of my tin onto a piece of printer paper. I cut that out. I used a pencil to draw out a sweater design. I used some matte Mod Podge to stick that to my tin, adding more Mod Podge on top to seal it in. I wanted to make it sort of textured like a real sweater, so I found some of this 3D fabric paint and used that to go over the lines that I drew. I was originally going to make the sweater design out of clay, but I figured that this would be easier. If you decide to do this, be warned, this is not easy on your hands. I had to stop and take a break in the middle, but puffy paint was definitely the right move. The only problem was that it dries with a gloss finish, so I ended up adding this matte top coat from my gel nail polish set on top to make it look a little more realistic. I always like to decorate the edges of my tins as well. My favorite thing to use for this is 1/4" ribbon. I just measure the ribbon around my tin and stick it on with matte Mod Podge. I put the Mod Podge underneath and on top of the ribbon for the first tin, but honestly I think it looks better if you just glue it on and don't put any Mod Podge on top. Sometimes I'll add bows to the middle of the ribbon before gluing it on. I like using a lighter on the ends of my bows so they won't fray, but if you don't want to use a lighter, you could definitely seal them with Mod Podge or clear nail polish. I measured a piece of ribbon around the tin, folded it in half, then sewed the bow onto the middle. You could glue the bow on, but I thought that sewing it would be better since it's on the front and that's more of like a high traffic area. I used Mod Podge to stick the ribbon on just like we did last time. If you have some thinner lace, I think that this can look really cute as well. I used epoxy instead of Mod Podge for the lace. I probably should have worn gloves for this. But, do as I say, not as I do, it's fine. Sometimes I'll add things on top of the ribbon, like flat back gems. I used some pearl trim for the Hello Kitty wallet. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend anything thicker like this, especially if it goes over the hinge part, because your wallet might not be able to open the whole way. Honestly, for me, it wasn't a huge deal, but I just thought that I'd mention it. Now, what can you put inside your Altoids wallet? Okay, so this kind of got me in trouble in the first video. Like, listen, I have not been thinking straight lately. Apparently, you're not supposed to do the little bottle with Tylenol in it. But they do sell individually labeled packs at the dollar store, so I hear that that's a better option, if you don't want it to look sketchy. But I put some gum, chapstick. Okay, I rolled up money and I secured it with a bobby pin because the bobby pin kept sticking to the mirror because of the magnets. But apparently, again, that looks a little sus, so I did not think that through. I put a mini blush, hair ties, safety pins. Although again, those kind of stuck to the mirror, so I turned this one into a little jewelry box. I think that this would be really cute for travel, or if you're like giving someone jewelry, I think that this would be a cute way to wrap it. You could put band-aids, setting powder, mascara, a mini makeup brush, pimple patches, nail clippers. I really like the idea of doing like some miniature cosmetics and keeping this inside of a larger bag as sort of like an emergency makeup kit. I added the Bratz mini makeup to the Bratz theme tin. Has anyone ever actually tried this? I know that this was a TikTok trend a while back. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments. What would you put in your Altoids wallet? Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you're interested in the whole like Altoids wallet saga and you want to see how I decorated every single wallet from start to finish, I'll be linking to a compilation video below. I'll be posting that the same day that I post this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so sorry that I've been gone for so long. Maybe I'll address it at some point, but maybe I won't because, you know, if I gotta go get a corporate job at some point, they say they're not supposed to discriminate, but we all know they do. But thank you guys for your patience and sticking with me through all this. Hopefully 2024 is better. Honestly, I've been doing some pretty serious treatments at the moment and I'm just tired, but staying optimistic. So I'll see you guys in the next one.